Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to i612's panel on the challenges of advanced TV. Just want to thank our sponsors for helping us put this all together. We have a great lineup today. With that, we'll get into it, and I'll introduce the panel for you all. First up, we have Daniel Church. He currently serves as the head of advanced TV product at Beachfront Media, where he leads his company's groundbreaking endeavor to uniformly connect cable, broadcast, and connected television within modern advertising marketplaces. Daniel has authored several patent-pending technologies around advanced TV. Prior to his role at Beachfront, Daniel served in similar roles at Freewill, StickAds.tv, and Samato. Cynthia Clevenger is currently leads all the marketing efforts at Tubi as the VP of B2B marketing, including go-to-market strategy, ad product positioning, events, and industry partnerships. Cynthia is an ad tech veteran with nearly 2 decades of experience working on both the agency and publisher sides of the industry. Before joining Tubi, she spent 5 years as Senior Director of Product Marketing at DataXU, now Roku, where she helped launch a suite of advanced TV products for advertisers. Jordan Looney serves as Manager of Insights and Analytics at Vizio and has been working in media and advertising for the past 10 years, and specifically within the connected TV analytics space for the past 6. Over the past year and a half, Jordan has worked with the largest premier ACR data set in the US, giving him unique insights on ways to use the data to effectively segment audiences and measure the effectiveness and impact of ad campaigns running on the Vizio network and beyond. Monica Longoria has served as head of product marketing at LG Ad Solutions. With over a decade of experience working in sales enablement for major broadcast and cable media conglomerates, she leads with professional experience that encompasses the vision of a storyteller, the data literacy of an analyst, and the creativity of a designer. At LG Ad Solutions, Monica also champions the initiatives with DE&I organizations and created the company's Diverse Voices webinar series, a monthly virtual event that features people of color who are industry thought leaders. Finally, we have Tom Wolf, is the SVP of Business Development at Viant Technology. He is responsible for driving strategic business partnerships to support the company's growth and business strategy. Tom is an accomplished industry veteran with more than 25 years of experience in content distribution, advertising, and technology focus on connected TV and over-the-top video. He has launched and led multiple businesses at industry leaders such as Roku, Yumi, TiVo, and Comcast, and has advised companies including Vizio, Vice Media, and more. And lastly, our moderator for this afternoon is Amanda Buddy, is a media supervisor at Martin Williams. Buddy is known, she wanted to work in advertising since watching Mad Men, starting in local TV, moving into the digital media world on accounts like Target, CBS, Fox, and CVS, and Edward Jones. She found her skill set and love of TV to put to use to planning and buying digital video campaigns and watching advanced TV space grow. Thank you all for being here today. We really appreciate it. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Amanda and we'll jump into Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Jack, for the introductions. So my very first icebreaker is what brings us all together today, which is TV. So I wanted to ask a quick around the room of your favorite show of all time and the show that you're currently streaming. So I'll start with Jordan, and then on deck is going to be Cynthia and then Monica.
Favorite show of all time. Ooh, that's a tough one. I am going to have to go with The Simpsons. That might be a little bit of a throwback, but I really like The Simpsons. Right now, I am streaming Peripheral, although there is a battle for the remote with me and my wife, as she's not a big sci-fi fan, and I'm a huge sci-fi fan, so I kind of have to sneak it in there and in those times when she's on a walk or something like that.
Amazing. Well, Amanda, I feel like I should say Mad Men because I did love Mad Men, but I gotta go Seinfeld. That's like, I mean, classic favorite. And right now I'm also streaming. I have a 6-year-old who's obsessed with baseball. So we're watching a lot of baseball documentaries and pound puppies.
I'm not sure if I have a favorite show. I can say that if The Fifth Element comes on the screen on the TV, I'm stopping and I'm watching. And then what I'm currently streaming, I am trying to make my way through Naruto Shippuden, which is an anime. There's like 500 episodes. I think I'm through like half of them, maybe. So I got a long way to go.
Thanks. And then Danielle, and then we'll finish up with Tom, and then I'll probably go as well.
Yeah, I'll go with Star Trek, which is probably a little bit classic. I'll go with the next generation one. And the one I'm watching right now is I'm addicted to Wrexham.
Favorite's tough, but I'm never disappointed by Cheers. And we just recently completed The Bear. We watch it on Hulu, excellent show. And we're now watching Andor and finally have started Ozark, which is excellent through the first couple of episodes. All streaming.
Excellent choices.
Yeah. Sorry?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, but just saying excellent choices. But yeah, my favorite show is X-Files. That's my favorite one of all time. Then I'm currently watching White Lotus and Mythic Quest that just launched their new seasons. But yeah, on to the business side of things. So very first question are, what are the differences between CTV, OTT, and DDL, and what on earth do those acronyms mean? So I want to start with Tom on this question.
So we get this more often than one might think. CTV is certainly streaming video on a television, and OTT it is the broader category of over-the-top video, which includes desktop video, mobile video, and others. I didn't catch the third one, but
DDL, or data-driven linear.
Data-driven linear, I assume that means addressable linear television coming through a coax or a broadcast pipe. So set-top box-driven data, unless somebody else wants to correct me on that.
It's usually targeting linear spots using audience based on the program or the network. But yeah, basically sort of addressable targeting on linear.
I think when it's important to distinguish how we identify linear television and define it is that television which is broadcast over the air or on coax cable as opposed to streaming, but in truth linear as an experience can happen on streaming devices as well. We have Hulu Live, we watch live programming, we have sports. Amazon has a lot of different sports shows now. So as we discuss this today, I'll be thinking of linear as broadcast and cable delivery, but not necessarily the viewing experience, as you can mimic that laid back experience both in the traditional environments as well as streaming TV.
Perfect, thank you. So the next question is going to go to Monica, and it's CTV is powerful from an impression standpoint, but one big challenge worth stressing is that it gives very little visibility to who's actually watching. So what makes co-viewing measurement more of an issue with streaming than linear TV?
So I think to really answer that question, we have to go back to historically what's been happening, right? Panel-based measurement, we're told, person put in that I was watching TV and that's how we know. But if you think about it too, like those samples are relatively small. So even if you feel like you're still having to make a lot of assumptions just based on a smaller sample of data. Especially coming from an OEM background with ACR data, really our viewpoint is to really think about the household, and then we'll overlay third-party data to say, does a person of your target parameter exist in that household? But when you look at the data around how others influence purchases in the household, you have to think about the household as a unit because it's not individual viewers making a decision on their own. So for me, the really answer to this is to change the thought process around this question versus thinking that streaming has to be measured and activated the exact same way as linear. So
So next question, Daniel, you kind of mentioned this on the data driven for DDL, but when we talk about DDL, and if it, as it is more targeted than traditional, but from what we can tell, it's more targeted at network level, but you were kind of mentioning that it's kind of with an audience base. But would you say that it is a better audience or a better option to give you a more specific audience, or what is kind of the best use case scenario for the data driven linear TV?
Yeah, so I like to think about DDL between kind of, addressable and linear, where you get some of that audience, qualities where you're actually targeting audience that is a little bit more tailored than linear, but not quite as exact as CTV or digital or OTT. So you're using the programs or the networks, usually, what time you're inserting, what program is on, and you can basically build a plan using audience basis, the audience viewership basis for either the networks or the shows or a mixture of all of them. That would allow you to hit the spots to basically capture that audience. And the value there is, it is very broad. You get a lot of reach. It is cheaper than the targeting, the detailed targeting of CTV. So it's kind of like a happy middle ground between advertisers who need to target a very, very specific audience that they're going after, and those that need to target, toilet paper brands that are very, very wide.
Perfect, thank you. And then how really has the addressable TV evolved? If like we know we get kind of the and then sorry, I just wanted to make sure if anyone else had any other comments on the addressable TV or data driven before.
They'll come.
We'll jump in, don't worry.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, thanks. And then I apologize for talking really fast. I've tried my entire life to slow down talking, but it's much more realistic that everyone will listen faster than for me to slow down. So just a heads up on that. So yeah, kind of on that question, then Monica, I think I might throw this one to you, but how has addressable TV evolved? It seems like an old tactic, but clients still ask about it sometimes. Obviously, if you have a large enough list that you can use OTT instead of addressable, but that's not always addressable, but not always the case. So yeah, are there ways to target specific households, and is it still based on that set box top data?
Yeah, so this goes back to the ACR data, so automated content recognition data that I was speaking to, where we're really looking at like what's happening on that device. And then so we have device IDs so that we can categorize that household. And so that's what allows us to target those specific households, is using that network. We like to say that the TV is the hub of the household, and that having that system in place, right, owning the operating system, being able to collect that data allows us to combine that reachability and like targetability with the actual scale that we get with streaming.
Yeah, and I want to comment. There's a couple different kinds of addressable, and I know it is an old tactic. I was at Go Addressable today here in New York, so there are definitely a lot of people still working on this, and I think that the way, especially that Monica rolled out that addressable, that is the old school kind of addressable. There are new versions of that. Vizio famously rolled out Project OR, which is glass level replacement, where they're actually replacing directly on the television. And the TV is actually the one putting it in front of the stream, so that you can actually get what is very, very close to a CTV experience in terms of data, because the TV is actually requesting those ads. And then you have everything from OpenAP, which is making a lot of making up a lot of ground when it comes to sharing data between these systems and being able to make sure that everyone who needs that addressable data has that addressable data and can execute on it. And then there is, again, Go Addressable partners with Canoe and Comcast, Cox and Charter, and many others that are working on kind of bringing them all together into a seamless, I would say, kind of experience. No matter what kind of addressable it is, no matter which system it's operating on, you would be able to target it pretty seamlessly and be able to get back a measured response.
And with the addressable and all of that kind of different targeting that goes into it, do you have CPMs that are going up and ways to combat kind of like the layers and layers of targeting those CPM increases?
Yeah, so addressable, depending on the flavor, can be very much a CTV or more premium. because you're actually targeting linear TV viewers, even though you are getting the data and experience, of a CTV ad, to the ones where you actually have to set that data set into certain systems very much ahead of time. So there's a lot of different, I guess, methods to execute on, and all of them work a little differently.
I would also add to that historically linear has been seen, right? It's like low cost for high reach. When I worked at a broadcast station, I would take that and then overlay what, like maybe they want to reach adults 35 plus or something, right? I'd overlay that and say, well, if you were to calculate the waste, people that you don't want to reach, and take that out, here's really what your CPM would be. So I think that it's just natural that the targeting CPMs come higher. It's just masked really within linear.
Yeah, I mean, TV was sold like that for years and years. The CPMs were always targeted, and the equation was exactly what you just described, Monica. It's that you divide basically the percentage into the CPM to get the targeted CPM. That's gotten lost in digital, quite frankly. And when CTV first came in the market, we were all out there selling at what we thought was a good CPM, but the targeting applications still aren't consistent across the different providers. And so as a DSP, when we look across different CTV channels and we can apply the CPMs the way we need to with our targeting parameters, it becomes a little bit more sensible for the buyers who have to go across omni channels, multiple channels, whether it's TV or TV and digital. Yeah, there's still some work to do on the upfront targeting side of things, as well as the measurement side.
Yeah, thank you. So kind of moving into the more challenges within streaming. So there have been reported issues of connected devices continuing to play content after the set is turned off. So how are ways that we are solving for that, and just ways that we're kind of combating that the left on TV sets that are still running?
Yeah, I can take a stab at this one. I mean, I think the playback experience is something that's been under improvement for the past several years, and a lot of updates to platform operating systems through features or prompts such as, asking viewers if they're still watching, other ways where CTV devices are providing the signal via an HDMI cable when the TV is actually off. And at Tubi, we've been honoring that signal whenever we get it. And I think that this isn't, unique to one platform operating system or pipe. I think it needs to be an industry standard, and we're committed to partnering with others in the industry to fix these issues. I would say one important call out is that non-viewers don't take action. So, we have a measurement program at Tubi where we partner with third-party attribution partners everywhere from BrandLift to did an ad that, someone saw on our streaming service, then prompt somebody to take action in terms of going into a store or making a purchase. So, I think whereas, yes, TV is being off and there's a scare of people not wanting to pay for something that nobody sees, if you're measuring performance, that's one way to circumvent that particular issue that I think is still being worked on across the industry.
When I was at Roku, we went through this analysis of every channel and how long they were on with how many users, and that's when we came up with the "Are you still watching?" prompt to which Cynthia referred. Some of the publishers were doing it themselves already. In effect, after 4 hours, if there's no action taken on the remote control, the prompt comes up asking you if you are still watching. If you do not answer, or if you can't answer no, obviously, it will shut off that channel and return to the home screen. Importantly, this is not necessarily unique to connected television. There are plenty of cable set-top box devices that are attached to TVs, and the user turns off the TV instead of the set-top box. And in some ways, I think it's fair to argue that connected television is actually ahead of the curve in that regard, because we actually have this way of shutting things down. And also in the digital environment, if there are timestamps and things like that, you can decide, I've seen this user enough, I don't want to see this user again, what have you. So there's been quite a bit of advancements on this front.
Yeah, this is not a new issue. It's been on set-top boxes forever. You know, all the measurement companies basically take this into consideration when they're actually measuring it, that there is a certain percentage that is not viewed. It's just kind of a technological problem because they're two different systems. One is producing the ads, one is displaying the ads. But like Tom said, I think in the digital side, we're gonna make solve that problem pretty quickly through either, like Tom said, are you still watching, or through HDMI cable communications, like Cynthia said.
Yeah, from a Vizio perspective, you know, because we own both the hardware as well as the software that's running, I'm sure LG has this similar situation, right? We know instantly when our TVs are turned off. There's actually just no way that could happen. Where it really happens is, you know, extra devices are plugged in. They don't recognize when the TV's off, and so they're still operating. But it's one of the reasons why OEMs are kind of, you know, starting to lead the charge in the space, is because they are able to kind of own both the hardware and how it functions, as well as the software, and then hopefully as well the data that they're collecting on the back end.
It's also important to remember that some devices are actually used in restaurants and other places where they are left on. At Roku, we also allowed an exception for the programming to continue running without the prompt. And those ads reach a number of people in an environment like a restaurant. So that can be valuable as well for the advertiser.
Awesome. Thank you. That was really really great conversation on that. So just moving on to the next question. So YouTube is launching, has launched its primetime channels, where it's an aggregate service about.
Amanda, can I just say one more thing on that?
Absolutely.
If you're using a DSP, you can set frequency caps on a daily basis also, and you can certainly. I think Cynthia, you were getting at this also, right? You can certainly cap the number any one user sees an ad, and you will know what that household is or what that device is if you have a good household graph, which we do, of course, and you can do that across channels as well. So you shouldn't have this problem really at all. You can't avoid it in a lot of ways. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I get the feeling you might be from a DSP as well, Tom, based on your knowledge and your quick pitch on that for everyone.
Yes, Fine has our Adelphic DSP for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so
I'm agnostic here. I'm a TV guy.
Absolutely. But yeah, so the aggregated streaming service that YouTube is launching, curious how you think that might affect the landscape of the consumption that everyone's streaming service, including with the cord cutters and people kind of having that. And so I will throw that question to Monica first.
Yeah, this is actually a topic that I am just so interested in. We're seeing so much research of people just really want a one-stop shop to be able to just find their content. They don't care what app it's on, just tell me where to get the content that I want to see. That is part of the reasons why OEMs have been seeing such significant increases in time spent and usage, because it natively offers that experience. So YouTube is definitely going the right route to set up that sort of functionality, especially with the market share that they have. That's going to put them into a prime position. I think we're going to continue to see even more of those players. We're already seeing it with, different fast platforms, other platforms that are trying to go out there and create this aggregated experience for users.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a follow-up to that, it just brings true the point of delivering choice for consumers based on what they want and how they want to consume content. And, I think part of that is not just aggregation, but also personalization. Something that we're very focused on is ensuring that everybody's experience is unique to them. And I think, technologies and platforms and streaming services need to meet the consumers where they want to be met.
Yeah, I would say I think all boats kind of rise in a high tide, and YouTube being a major player in the space is definitely just going to kind of, in my perspective, draw more people away from that linear TV experience into those streaming environments, and that's just more viewers who are using connected TV. So the more that, to Monica and Cynthia's point, that consumers feel comfortable in the space, the more likely they are to end up in these different streaming platforms. And it also presents an interesting challenge for linear TV buyers over the course of, we've already seen this trend happening, but it will only continue to kind of expedite, in my opinion, as we see, more and more people moving away. We just need to think about how we start to shift our buying platforms as more people move into these, ad-supported environments.
If the nature of the question is about YouTube, it's important to remember a few things. They've tried TV a lot. It's a very, very, very good company, very strong in search and other aspects. They've tried TV a lot. They've had moderate success. Most programmers, and Cynthia, maybe you can keep me honest here, but most programmers don't want to put all their eggs in the Google basket or any other basket. So a buyer is going to have to come to a decision. Which walled gardens am I going to buy? And how am I going to go deeper across the omni channels, right? And so there was a question that came in about whether or not you just buy linear and complement that with YouTube. There's a good set of buyers out there that are saying, well, I'd rather go with these other four, and then maybe use either a DSP or some other outlet to try to get the rest of the viewers. You can reach a lot of viewers on YouTube. It's a different ad experience. It's short form. It tends to be very good for mobile. People do watch it on TV quite a bit. We saw that on Roku as well. It really depends on whether you're looking for people who are in a more engaged, lean forward experience, or in the traditional lean back branding experience that is a primary benefit. So, and encourage all the buyers and anybody on this call to think about that, because connected television brings the best of both digital and traditional TV together. And you can be laid back, you can be lean forward.
I would agree. And I would say too, I mean, publishers like Tubi and others offer the ability then, if you want to take your buy a bit further, aside from just audience targeting, to do more high impact sponsorship things or something a little bit more closely tied to the content in a longer format. There are a lot of options out there, and I think it all depends on what your goals are. That's number one question. Being a former agency person myself, that's what we all should be thinking when we're all talking about all of these choices and new acronyms and aggregators and all of the crazy fragmented world that we live in.
I'd also like to add that walled gardens aren't necessarily the future of CTV, right? Right now, it's very profitable for a platform to keep their data inside. But I do believe that over time, that transparency, that working with other partners to make the data more accessible for measurement and activation is going to just be a requirement to do business. With LG, that's something that we do. We partner with Magnite, we partner with iSpot. We're trying to make sure, obviously, we're keeping a lot of our good stuff in, but we're making it to where you can still utilize that data to influence the rest of your buys. And I think that a lot of the industry will follow that course.
Conceptually, I totally agree with you. Everything looks good on a spreadsheet, but then when you bring emotion into it, things get all sorts of kludgy. And we've been thinking about this for a long time, because as buyers are trying to figure out how do they complement linear with CTV, the initial thing that we came up with at Roku and others did was, well, let's show you the incremental lift we could do. And how do we do that? We licensed ACR data and we use that data to show the lift. The challenge with that, with ACR data from any provider, and I know some of you are on the call here, is that it is distinct to a universe. That universe is not representative, and the methodologies between the two, the different platforms are very different. And so you give it to iSpot, you license it to partners, and we partner with iSpot. We think they're pretty good. You've got to make sure that the methodology is right between these different providers. And the data has to be valuable. It can't be limited in one way from one provider and limited in another way. We believe ultimately what's going to end up happening is what's old is new again. And a lot of the traditional measurement companies that were out there and succeeded are going to be the ones who know how to put all these things together in a meaningful way. And will be able to validate their deterministic data that they've got with the probabilistic panel-based data that they've been using in the past. And that's going to be the future of measurement in TV. And we think, by the way, that everybody can be reached on connected television now anyway. So eventually linear is going to fall out of favor for buyers, and that you can succeed in hitting your target audiences strictly on connected TV and through other platforms much more effectively than linear complemented by something like YouTube. Does that make sense? and we think it's coming fast. 48% of people can be reached, according to eMarketer in Q2, 48% of people can be reached on CTV, but only 42% of budgets went there. In Q3, more than 50% were watching on CTV. Pixability just came out with a study that said 87% of people can be reached through the YouTube app alone, again, depending on the experience, where you want to reach users. If users are using 3 or 4 apps in these connected television environments, which they are, you're going to hit well over 90% of people between those apps. And they're going to be the people you want to hit as a marketer, right? The people that are not watching connected television these days tend to fall out of the demographic target groups that most marketers want to hit. And so we have a lot of conversations about linear and connected television. We know the day is coming when all ads will be delivered digitally. We know the day is coming when all viewers will be watching connected television. By the time we figure out how to measure linear and CTV perfectly together, everybody will have left linear. And so we'll CTV anyway.
I'll disagree a little bit there. I don't agree with the high level points, but I think there are a large swath of this country that do not have the infrastructure to start large scale household streaming. So a lot of places are still getting satellite dish TV. There's still a tremendous amount of subscribers on both dish and DirecTV that are getting their TV directly from the satellite. So, you can certainly hit a lot of, percentages of your audience, but if you're actually looking for specific regions, specific areas, linear is still, king in a lot of those areas.
I think it's a fair point. And totally agree. I also look back to the days when cable deployed into the markets in Montana and Colorado and brought viewership to people that they couldn't have before. And the same thing's going to happen in streaming. Internet access will be readily available, and mobile phones are also changing. And so AT&T and Verizon, of course, are offering big 5G plans so you can stream video. But so are Charter and Comcast. And so we're going to see a lot of push away from set-top box deployment from those providers and into mobile. Now they'll still have ad businesses because they're still going to have the apps on the platform. They're still going to have the ad rights with all the programmers, and it's still going to be fairly healthy. When that happens, good point. I'm not sure. I think if you're buying nationally, you could hit everybody you need to hit within a couple of years. But if you are doing pointed regional buys, you may have to be more thoughtful. And for the record, we are a good partner of Beachfronts. We love working with it and we believe in what we're doing, but we do think about the future as well.
Yeah, one of our best ATV partners over at Viant.
Awesome, thank you. So kind of based on that, is there a solve for such a fragmented landscape that you think will kind of be utilized going forward?
I think for the near term, fragmentation is going to be the term we use. I think that we certainly need to get past it. It's not good for the industry. It's not good for the advertisers to have these all bucketed. We speak to a lot of them and a lot of agencies who are frustrated that they have to use so many platforms. That's something that we work on closely at Beachfront, is bringing all of these disparate endpoints into one platform so we can provide advertisers, for example, at Viant, the ability to hit set-top box VOD, linear, CTV, all in the same place so that they don't need to actually go hit a platform, hit a linear scheduler, and go all the way down the line to make a buy that could take longer to put together than it actually runs.
The buyer reflects the consumer, right? We just talked about people wanting that one place where they can just, wherever it is, just get it all at one. As marketers, we're exactly the same.
I think fragmentation can take on a lot of different topics, right? We can talk about measurement, we can talk about viewership, we can talk about all the different players in this space, but I think at a high level, like a key theme is interoperability, right? And to your point, Monica, around like the future of walled gardens, like we need to be able to connect the pipes to things like UID across the board, as well as measurement and additional solutions to kind of dissuade some of that fragmentation.
Yeah, I definitely think fragmentation is kind of just the name of the game as we've seen it. I mean, it's happened across a lot of the different places that we've been trying to serve ads for a long time. I mean, even cable coming into the marketplace was a new injection of fragmentation into the linear TV buying model too as well. And so, you know, there's a lot of different, you know, businesses and partners that are standing these up. And so for me, when I think about fragmentation, you know, I really think, you know, from the places you can buy will continue to be fragmented, but I'm always thinking back from a measurement perspective. And there are being more and more advancements made on the measurement side of the house to be able to tie what's happening across all of these disparate places. And then ACR data is, you know, important in some of these instances to be able to determine, you know, what's happening at the glass level, so that we can start to, you know, track frequency across different app partners, across different buys, and even include linear TV into that mix as well.
It's funny, when I started in this business and I'm aging myself, I was selling local ads on cable, and our competition was local radio. And some of the car dealers did it because they could get on the Yankees or whatever. Some of it was local print, and some of it was the yellow pages, right? And so you had two of those businesses are gone right now. With fragmentation, there's a lot of opportunity, right? And so Cynthia referred to it earlier. Broadcast TV brought the content, right? Cable brought the choice, and CTV brings the control. So similarly on the ad side, broadcast TV was top of the funnel branding. Cable and satellite added that content affinity and geo-targeting, which Daniel referred to. And then connected TV brings you audience targeting, attribution, and more, right? So eventually we're going to get to the point where connected TV gives you all that. It's the top of the funnel branding, it's the content affinity and geo-targeting, and it's the audience targeting and attribution and more piece of it. So this fragmentation of how users take in content, it still presents a lot of opportunities for advertisers. You just got to figure out how to access it and go at it. And again, you may buy some walled gardens, but you probably end up buying on the channel. It's as a CTV guy now, I'm a cable guy now a CTV guy. Of course, I'm going to talk about the future and what I think it can bring for us, but I think it's a lot closer than people realize right now. And the measurement has probably been complicated by more technical discussions instead of really focusing on what's the strength of the audience you're hitting with the measure, you know, with the way we are actually able to measure it. Sometimes get in our own way as an industry a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. Oh. And so on that, Tom, one thing I didn't hear you guys really mention are QR codes or banners, and knowing that's kind of like a big solution that a lot of reps are bringing up, or like what it's leaning towards of showing that QR code. So just wanted your opinion on if that is kind of where you think it's moving towards, or if that will still be kind of more in the programmatic and digital world, or on the more of the display side.
I mean, I think I can comment on that. There's certainly, I think you're talking about all the different new ad formats. And I think at last year's like Upfront and Newfront, that was a huge topic that a lot of people did talk about and are bringing to market. And I think, you know, again, bringing it back to what are the goals of your campaign, there certainly may be a place for QR codes, you know, rich media, interactive, creative, depending upon what your desired outcomes are. I think that in some cases, the technology is not always there yet to actually, you know, prove the outcomes of what has happened there. That doesn't mean you shouldn't test. But I think more importantly, and I say this because at Tubi, we're so focused on the consumer and the streamer, the audience. What do they want, right? When it comes to an ad format, that we know they want low ad loads, so do advertisers, right? It's a better experience. And I think digital ad tech has fueled advertising options across the big screen like interactive, but like what do audiences actually prefer? And what's going to create the best experience for the consumer and the advertiser. We recently partnered with the research firm Magid and are getting ready to publish some information next month about 2,000 streamers, not just Tubi streamers, And 62% of them said that they just prefer standard video ads. You know, I think as opposed to kind of things tailored to their viewing history, location, or maybe past browsing history. So I do think that, you know, you mentioned this, Tom, streaming is just how people are consuming TV, but it's still in many ways a TV-like experience. And so part of that might be, you know, preference might be driven by expectation. I'm watching a television viewing experience, and this is the type of advertising that, you know, I would expect to see, and that provides a true value exchange for what I'm getting for free.
I love that word, and I totally agree. If you think about your own experiences with interactivity, there are some experiences that are good and some that aren't, right? I think there's probably some annoyance when you have an interactive ad. You have the option to skip or choose, and you might actually get mad at the advertiser, right, by proxy. It's just because you can do something doesn't mean we have to. We just haven't perfected it yet. QR codes are interesting. The most effective ad in the Super Bowl last year was a bouncing QR code on the screen, right? And if you think about the modern television viewer, they're usually sitting around the TV with family members who are all on a device. And if you can get that QR code and it's interesting, then you've all of a sudden got your big branding lean back TV while you know, accented by this little mobile device that can help you figure out the interactivity piece of it. So even though many budgets aren't set up this way at the agency side, there's still a lot of segmentation for TV versus other platforms. We believe that's where the omni-channel opportunity really lies. When you're looking at the household level, a household device like the TV, and then you're able to connect the users in that household to that television through multiple identifiers in the graph, not just the email address. So for us, we use the physical address as the basis of the home. We know there's TVs associated with that through other values, whether there's an email address, there's lat long, there's IP address, and other things like that. But the physical address is the root. You know, you can hit people on the TV in the physical address. You can use something like a QR code to know that you've hit the right user on the right device from that. And so omni-channel planning will become very important if it isn't already. The opportunity is already there, and many buyers are doing it. Some shops are still set up where they're buying traditional TV as a separate silo.
I'll just toss in there. I think, you know, QR codes are really cool. I mean, they can, you know, I think the pandemic kind of like really expanded the use case of them across you know, all sorts of different aspects of our life. I know I'm a lot more comfortable using a QR code today. In fact, I bought this sweatshirt when I was watching a Timberwolves game on linear TV, and a QR code popped up at halftime, and it was like 10% off, you know, discount at the store. So I think it's a tool to get, you know, somebody to take an action if they're interested in it, but it's not like a fix all for interactivity within the space. And so I think it's, you know, a piece to the puzzle. You want to present that opportunity for folks if they're, you know, savvy to get it there, but it's something that shouldn't be used, in my opinion, as like the success metric for the campaign. How many QR code clicks did we get? You know, it's a piece to the puzzle, but it's not the whole picture.
Yeah, we actually use it sometimes when there's a lack of measurement or people question the measurement, so that they can actually see something that is concrete, that people are actually doing something to that ad and actually going somewhere with it. So there's so many utilizations or ways that you could use QR codes. I saw it on CNN. Their logo now has it on some of their streams. So I think it's getting a wide adoption now.
They stink for menus, though. Can we all agree on that? Like, they're really bad for menus.
Yeah.
I like the menu. It's like I'm sitting there. I just get to do my thing. I don't have to wait for the waiter to come in. Like it's my jam.
Yeah, you're still young. I gotta wear glasses. I gotta read the phone. Wow, can't do it, Jordan.
They're perfect for the activating to if you have to log into like your new or like an app and you can scan the QR code and then it updates to like your Hulu account or Amazon or whatever. That is what I find a perfect use case. And I must assume that helps with kind of device measure or match back as well for reporting and analytics purposes. But yeah, big fan of that. Yeah, any other strong opinions on QR codes from anyone?
I would just add that I think it's really about shoppable experiences. QR codes is just the beginning of more technology that's going to develop that allows consumers to more easily shop from their streaming experience.
Perfect. So yeah, kind of one of the last questions before we move on to the Q&A. But how should marketers determine which streaming services is best for your objectives and goals? And since the market has so many streaming services now and it is becoming more and more fragmented as we've been talking about, and then also wanted to get you guys' point of view on a service like Netflix adding an ad serving package, and then what that effect is going to have kind of on the streaming world when Netflix kind of launched as an ad-free streaming service to get all your content in one place. So kind of start that one with Cynthia.
Sure. So I guess the first part of your question is what should you be looking for when it comes to a streaming partner? I mean, what's really interesting, we work with advertiser perceptions to get research and data and insights on what buyers and marketers are looking for. And the top 3 drivers for partner selection tend to be things that, frankly, a lot of solutions and a lot of providers have, but frequency is still top of mind. And I think the ability to reach a large, unduplicated audience, especially those who are kind of underserved audiences, is important. So, coupled with kind of those table stakes, I think the core value proposition to consumers that any streamer provides is paramount. So, a lot of us, admittedly myself, are swayed by what kind of mass market media say is really popular or trending, meaning like water cooler moments or content that's created and made by maybe a chosen few people for a chosen few audiences. And the rest of America doesn't look like me. I think it's important to partner with a streaming service that's focused on what audiences are actually interested in, content that serves their community and culture, and that have the data to apply those insights and learnings to a better viewing and ad experience. So that would be my recommendation, to think about the consumer, and the streamer audiences that anyone attracts and retains.
Yeah, I would tend to agree for sure. I think, we're looking at it from a slightly different lens from an OEM perspective. I think, thinking about, how are they able to segment your audiences? What technology are they using to be able to, ensure that we're reaching engaged audiences in the right spots? And then, and as an analytics guy, I'm always interested, how can we measure this effectively? How can we actually prove out, the hypotheses that we put in on the front end to be able to, show that impact on the back end? So, thinking about, the front end experience in terms of segmenting out these audiences and different ways that we're able to do that, along with, how do we actually, run the campaign, who are we reaching and where are we reaching them? And then how do we prove that effectiveness on the back end are 3 things that I think are really important to consider as you kind of approach the marketplace.
And, looking at it from the DSP perspective, there are definitely going to be goals that you want to achieve across all of these things. And Cynthia mentioned interoperability and reporting. Right now, that's not really pervasive in the industry. So as a DSP, we can help you figure out which channels to buy and report across all of them pretty evenly. And that's going to be important for buyers, right? As far as Netflix goes, I think another thing to look at is, how is the programming viewed on a channel, right? And what Disney Plus has done so well is merge the best of traditional television and the weekly rollout of a program with the on-demand nature of connected television. And so they create buzz over time, and they create consistency in viewership across the weeks and period. And Netflix to date has only started experimenting with that by splitting Stranger Things season 4 into 2 different release dates, but they still get that binge viewing. So they get water cooler over the shorter term, but Disney may be getting water cooler over the longer term. How does that model impact your ad buying? It's to be determined. They have the right people running it and figuring it out, but frequency caps may go to the wind if you buy something like that, that spikes like that. Right? So when you've got somebody that's agnostic and a buying tool helping you, that's our job, to figure it out for you and help you figure out how to place, plan, and
One thing that I'd like to add is just something to keep in mind is that audiences, they use a lot of different apps because what's most important is the content. It's not about the app they use, it's about the content they can get from a given app. So also don't feel like I have to be in certain places because those same people are probably elsewhere that you can also get, and maybe even for a lower CPM. That's the beauty of all of the fast channels that are coming through, just because people are predominantly more interested in cutting subscriptions and getting access to free ad-supported TV. And so when you start to reflect on how does the viewer actually consume, that can help you with not feeling like the FOMO of I have to be on a Netflix, I have to be on this certain place, because you can get those same audiences elsewhere.
Anyone have any other thoughts on that one, or we can ask one last question? All right. Speak now or forever hold your peace on that one. So my last question is, where do you see the advanced TV analytics in the next 5 to 10 years? What are going to be the biggest changes, and hopefully, what are you hoping to get out of our analytics for in the coming future? Jordan, that one's going to you. That is like the one job I have, is to call on someone, and I keep forgetting to do it. But
it's all good. It's all good. I think, we've talked a lot about a lot of different ways in which data and analytics are starting to empower the industry. I think everybody on this call has a unique perspective and probably access to a unique subset of the data. And so I think that I'm a big believer that old keys don't open new doors. And so I think what we really need to start to do as an industry around analytics is start to kind of decouple ourselves from some of these traditional ways of measuring success and start to explore these new avenues for us to really understand maybe not only what's happening at the bottom of the funnel, but how are consumers moving from the top of the funnel and into the bottom? And is it really a funnel, right? Or is it more of like a purchase spiral in which you're kind of moving from awareness to consideration and back and forth over a given piece of time? So I think that the data is incredibly rich on the connected TV side. Organizations are getting better at utilizing it. Third parties are coming in and starting to do unique things with the data that connected TV is providing, and it's opening new ways of measurement. And I think that we just need, as an industry, to really start to explore these new measurement tactics and start to push our brands and our partners to say, hey, like, maybe it's, a brand health metric might be potentially, more impactful for us on this given campaign than maybe, a given attribution model. Or can we start to explore website pixels or in-store attribution or all of these other different ways for measuring a campaign? They're really here today. It's more up for the industry to say, hey, listen, we need to think a little bit differently and uniquely about how we're measuring success for this campaign and utilize some of these new keys to unlock new doors for our brands.
We rolled out our guaranteed outcomes program last year, which is that you, instead of buying just a CPM, you're buying based on like a cost per install, for example. And some of the feedback that we got back is people would say, really love this, but we're just not ready to buy this way yet. So I totally agree with Jordan that it's already here to be able to just really elevate the way that you buy and like your KPIs that you expect. It just takes letting go of the old ways of doing things. I know Cynthia mentioned outcomes a ton, and I really do think that's the future of where things are going, that once the data sets start to become connected, now we can buy based on what we want to achieve versus vanity metrics that don't really matter.
Well, outcomes are very important. We do a lot with return on ad spend through the funnel as well. I don't think we know the impact yet on real high-level branding from all the digital tools we have in the connected TV space. I'm not saying that we have to revert to the days where, oh, you run a Volkswagen ad and 10 years later you're ready to buy a Volkswagen, but you still have to have some brand recognition that leads to a purchase, right? Because most people want to trust the brand that they're buying. They may take a chance here or there, but they'll revert back to the trusted brand. We don't necessarily know what all all these advancements in technology have done for high level branding, but I'm a believer that it's important. You want to have some brand level recognition. It doesn't, TV is a very good tool for doing that because of sight, sound, motion, and emotion. It doesn't necessarily mean there aren't other good tools for doing it. Social media is very good at building brands, for example. So I agree with you on the concepts of getting through the funnel and having all these new metrics. Let's not discount the impact and importance of the top of the level there in the funnel.
For sure. I see brand lift as an outcome. It's not what you traditionally think of an outcome, but it really is.
All right, excellent discussion, everybody. We're at time here, so I'll just pop in and wrap it up. Just want to thank all of our sponsors and all of our panelists, Vizio, Tubi, LG, Beachfront, and Viant, and our wonderful moderator, Amanda, from Martin Williams here. And I think that will wrap everything up. Again, thank you to all of our sponsors. This is recorded and will be posted on our YouTube later in case anyone wants to send it out to anybody. But with that, I'll let everyone go. Again, thank you for attending and everyone watching, and hope you all have a great weekend and a great rest of the day.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thanks.